But this is a sermon that was given by my spiritual father, Lawrence Bear, in Maryland. And already it's a little dated because it was about 4 weeks ago. So, but it's still fairly current. And who knows Lawrence? Does anybody know Lawrence Bear? Okay. Stephanie, of course, we joined. He was there where we joined. And Lawrence is, well, I told this story very recently. You already heard it, maybe. But when I was 21 years old, I traveled to California, and I was ended up in Berkeley, and I was skateboarding on the campus. And so this guy in a full suit and wingtip shoes ran up to me, and he said, "Oh, let me try your skateboard." And he rode about 10 feet, and he jumped off, and he said, "We're having dinner, Thanksgiving dinner, and I can't go back without a guest." So I went with him, and that's when I was introduced to the church. And the introductory message was given by Dr. Durst. So that was pretty amazing. But at that time, I had kind of rejected religion in the church. I grew up in the Methodist church. And so Lawrence invited me to come back the next day, and he had lunch. He had a nice lunch prepared, simple, salad and sandwich and fruit. And he said, "Do you pray? Or do you usually pray before you eat?" And I said, "No, I don't." I was kind of offended a little bit. And he said, "Well, perhaps we could just take a moment to just meditate on where this food came from, how the rain was sent and watered the seeds, and the crops grew up, and then the farmers harvested it, and they took it to the market, and then somebody prepared it." And so we did that. And that was my first prayer as a young adult. I hadn't prayed in many years at that point. But it affected me. And so it kind of opened my heart so that when I went to workshop, I was able to experience God. And that was the life-changing experience, which I needed. So Lawrence gave this sermon a few weeks ago, and I was so impressed with it when I read it. It kind of blew me away a little bit. Even though Lawrence and I don't always see eye to eye. For example, he sent me a message a while back, a year or two ago maybe, about how God is working through Donald Trump, and I disagreed with a few points, and I don't remember what I said, but what he said after that was, "I don't have an axe to grind with anybody." Have you heard that saying before? I don't have an axe to grind. So I guess what that means is that I had to look it up, but it means I'm not doing this for my own purpose. I'm not saying these things for my benefit. But when I went back and tried to find that email, it disappeared. It's gone. And there was another time when he created an album recently, and it was called Across Love. And so I said, I was just wondering if you were talking about the cross, right? Across love. Across love. You're talking about the cross of Jesus. No, he was not. He let me know he was not. But he did so Lawrence is not a person who gets upset, or he's got a very strong character. He grew up Jewish, and he's got this incredible family, but he's not a person that has an axe to grind or who holds a grudge, nothing like that. And it's been really helpful for me to have a spiritual father who's so grounded in his faith. So, and it's also provided a place where I can when I have questions, or when I don't know what's going on in the church, he's a person that I can rely on to explain it in ways that are understandable. he was on the Summit Council. I don't know exactly what that is, but I guess that was our church group which interacted with heads of state and important people. So Lawrence did that. That's some of the things he's done. So let's look at his sermon from a few weeks ago. He started it by having Dan Pfefferman sing an old church song called Marriage Has Come. Marriage Has Come. And it's a beautiful old song, and I almost, we almost did it. I thought about doing it today, but, and it's been in my head for these past few weeks. But do you guys know that song? Rise and shine and greet the brand new morning. Now shall we sing and rejoice. It's very good. Anyway, let's go on to the Bible verse. This is from Isaiah. Arise, and this song comes from, I guess it's based on this verse from Isaiah. Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you. See, darkness covers the earth, and thick darkness is over the peoples. But the Lord rises upon you, and his glory appears over you. Nations will come to your light, and kings to the brightness of your dawn. Foreigners will rebuild your walls, and their kings will serve you. Though in anger I struck you, in favor I will show you compassion. Your gates will always stand open. They will never be shut, day or night, so that people may bring you the wealth of the nations. Their kings led in triumphal procession. For the nation or kingdom that will not serve you will perish. It will be utterly ruined. This is an image that relates to Isaiah 60, which we just read, which is called, that verse we read is called the glory of Zion. Zion is the mountain on which Jerusalem is built. But in Christianity, Zion means the heavenly city or heavenly kingdom. So this is, this image on the left is by a commercial artist named Jeff Heine from 1998. And he considers himself kind of a prophetic artist. And if you look closely, there's two cranes here. So it almost looks like Cheongpyeong, doesn't it? So before Father passed, he said, it is completed, but for many of us, we're not sure what was completed, what's still left to be done, and what is actually completed. When Lawrence joined the church, he loved to sing the songs that we used to sing when we were young in the church, like The Marriage Has Come, for example. And we believed when we were young in the church that God would save this world. And we thought it would be before the year 2000. We thought it would come very quickly. But it's hard to believe that it's really real. God's kingdom is here. But it is here in Cheongpyeong. And that's what I think Josh was trying to say when he came back from Cheongpyeong. He had a really incredible experience there. And so he came back on Saturday night, and then he spoke about it on Sunday morning. But he had jet lag, and he didn't organize himself at all. He just had pictures, and he just spoke extemporaneously. So I don't think for me at least, I couldn't connect with what he was saying. What he was saying is, I just experienced heaven for 3 days. And that's what Lawrence experienced too. He experienced heaven in Cheongpyeong. so Lawrence says, I returned from Chungkyung, and my first night home I submitted a life summary, 3 pages, for my 50th high school class reunion. So 50 would be 1970, right? 50 years. He would have graduated in 1970. I went to a very historied, upper crust prep school in Connecticut. Most of my classmates were highly distinguished leaders in their fields, and I can't wait to see them. I guess the reunion is upcoming. And his submission, he thinks everybody's going to be talking about it. So this is his submission, kind of hard to see, but obviously. Obviously, he talks about true parents. All right, and he's also been sharing with a Protestant theologian and author from Korea, who is the professor at a seminary in Baltimore. These are 4 books that this author has written. His name is Jung Hoo John. And I met with him again on Thursday for about 3 hours, sharing about Chungkyung and answering his very sincere questions about true parents and principle. And I come away from those meetings supercharged with God's energy. So based on Isaiah 60 envisions the leaders of all the world traveling to Zion, which is the kingdom of heaven. Kings in procession will be led, bringing their gifts to Christ to glorify God. That's what happened at Chungkyung. After the worldwide tour in 2019, 9 nations and the entire continent of Africa held blessing ceremonies officiated by heads of state under the guidance of True Mother. And 120 current and former heads of state came to Chungkyung for the Foundation Day ceremonies. They wanted to be with True Mother. It was very real. Representatives of each region came and bowed and offered gifts to True Mother. And this is Goodluck Jonathan. He's the former president of Nigeria. He loves True Mother, and he presented a gift to her. Hun Sen from Cambodia is the world's longest serving prime minister. He loves Mother, and he wants to bring her to Myanmar to help restore that nation. Newt Gingrich, the former Speaker of the House, attended in Chungkyung. This was his second event with True Mother, and he was so inspired that this time he brought his daughter to experience. And significantly, both President Trump and Kim Jong-un sent congratulations from True Mother. And this is the card from President Trump and Melania. This is Ban Ki-moon. He's the former Director General of the United Nations, and this time he received the Sun Hak Peace Prize. The Sun Hak Peace Prize, it's named for Sun Myung-moon and Hak Ja-han-moon. Sun Hak was founded by True Mother to honor the legacy of True Father. And Director General Moon proudly posted his acceptance speech on his own website. In that speech, he says, "My special recognition goes to Dr. Hak Ja-han-moon for her visionary patronage of this award, as well as for her long-time advocacy efforts in support of world peace, global citizenship, and sustainable development issues. I simply couldn't be more proud to receive this award intended to further the ideals of such a pioneering individual who so firmly believed in the importance of peace, human development, coexistence, and environmental protection." Also receiving the Sun Hak Peace Prize was Macky Sall, current president of Senegal, as well as Bishop Munib Yunan, former president of the Lutheran World Federation. Okay, this is Jimmy Rogers. In 1973, he and George Soros left the firm that they'd been at and started the Quantum Fund together. The Quantum Fund, anybody know what that is? It's, I think it's to support conservative causes. In 1980, at the age of 38, he retired and rode his motorcycle around the world. Not George Soros, but Jimmy Rogers this time. In December 2007, Rogers sold his mansion in New York City and moved to Singapore. Rogers claimed that he moved because now is a groundbreaking time for investments in Asian markets. Rogers' daughters speak fluent Mandarin to prepare them for the future. He is quoted as saying, "If you were smart in 1807, you moved to London. If you were smart in 1907, you moved to New York City. And if you're smart in 2007, you moved to Asia." Jimmy Rogers is a millionaire, or a jillionaire possibly. He loves True Mother, and he said that he would financially support her and get his wealthy friends also to join him. Lawrence has a daughter-in-law. Her name is Kim Farr. F-A-U-R-E, Farr. She spent 10 years on Broadway, so she's an actress. And he's seen a few Broadway shows. Compared to what he saw on Broadway, the entertainment that we have in our church is usually pretty amateurish. But this time in Cheongpyeong, he was overwhelmed by the quality of the entertainment. The centerpiece of the birthday celebration was a profound and deeply moving 2-hour musical theater production. It was deeper and more inspiring and more beautiful than Les Miserables. In a few years, when people begin to understand who true parents are, that musical will tour the nations in big arenas, and it will be reconfigured for Broadway as well. And here's a few more slides about the show. All right, see. In 1997, I took my entire family to Cheongpyeong. This was 23 years ago. It was bleak. There was nothing there. We slept in tents with heated floors, but the water in our bottles froze at night. You needed spikes on your boots to walk up the hill, which went from ice to mud and back again. And then as Cheongpyeong developed, I felt like it was becoming more commercial and less authentic. But this time, I caught True Mother's vision. It's a world-class destination. In the Middle Ages, long after Jesus' death, the church built beautiful cathedrals to give pilgrims an experience of God and Jesus. At that time, those structures were the state of the art. In 20 years, the world will want to know, what was it like to live with true parents? What were they like? How can we experience their heart and God's heart? That's what Cheongpyeong is. It's designed using state-of-the-art technology and architecture to create a campus where everyone can come and connect to God and connect to true parents and feel embraced and loved. Mother's hand is everywhere. She's really into detail. Father focused on the big picture, but Mother is very detail-oriented. She wants each guest to be truly embraced and delighted. The arena is state-of-the-art and holds 30,000 people. And right behind it, they're building a large hotel, a modern hotel. At the victory celebration on February 8th, True Mother declared the establishment of the nation of Chenoguk. Sunhak UP Graduate University, formerly Chung-Shem Graduate School of Theology, is now a leadership academy to raise up the future leaders of the nation of Chenoguk. The head of it is Dr. Tom Sullivan. He graduated from UTS and received a doctorate from Harvard. And he's the president of Sunhak UP Graduate University. And Dr. Hendricks just moved to Korea to assist him. The graduating class presented themselves in full cadet uniform and received special awards from True Mother. Then the incoming class, led by Shin Chul Moon and his brother, presented themselves to True Mother, and Shin Chul Moon read a moving pledge of absolute unity and loyalty to True Mother. He, Lawrence says, is clearly designated as her successor. Lawrence was raised in a Jewish family, and they celebrated Passover. In our movement, we talk a lot about Jacob and a lot about Jesus, but not much about Moses. For me, this feels like the moment of the second coming of Moses' time. This is the second coming of Moses. When Jesus talked about the coming kingdom, it was always a vision of something that's happening in the future. And when Father would talk about the providence, it was something that's going to happen in the future, heaven. And we were always doing conditional events, taking little steps. But the fulfillment of the vision of heaven was always in the future. As Jesus would say, very soon. But of course, with God, 1,000 days could mean very soon. 1,000 years could be very soon. But with Moses, it was different. God was absolutely and urgently determined to liberate his children. The 400-year price for their liberation had already been paid in full. That payment freed God to use his mighty power and authority to bring about their liberation and to establish his nation on the earth. The barrier to God's will was a political barrier, and the Pharaoh didn't agree. So with God's authority, when Moses proclaimed something, it happened. Not in the future, but immediately. And Lawrence is saying, this is that kind of time. It culminated in the angel of death when the firstborn sons of all the Egyptians died. As with Noah and the flood, and as with Sodom and Gomorrah, God hoped no one would need to die. But because of Pharaoh's hardened heart, and because of the urgency of the providence to save all mankind, God allowed a few people to transfer to the next life ahead of schedule. That's the way he puts it. So that's what True Mother is doing now. The chosen people are still enslaved in North Korea. Mother has already established the nation of Chenoguk, but she needs to free God's enslaved children. This time, standing behind North Korea is President Xi of China, and the nation of China is acting as a bolster to keep Kim Jong-un's repressive regime in power. And the most powerful weapon both China and North Korea have is total government control of information. But God works through the Word, through the light of truth. Satan works through darkness and the shadows, through the hiding of truth, through censorship and through control of information. At this time in the providence, God must break down the walls of censorship, not the physical walls, but the walls blocking the free flow of information, which are imprisoning not only the people of China, but also the people of North Korea. As Dan Pfefferman wrote in the song, breaking down illusion's walls. Of course, it is not just True Mother. At this time, True Father has unified the entire spirit world and is in the driver's seat mobilizing the spirit world. True father and true mother are totally one. So now when mother acts or speaks, for the first time in history, not only God, but the entire spirit world is standing behind her. This is an unprecedented time. I'm not a great chess player, but I like to watch a good chess match and try to see what each player is doing. Heavenly Parent is engaged in a multidimensional chess match. If you pray about it and think about it, sometimes you can get insights into God's strategy. During Father's course on earth, it was as if God finally had one man on the board, and it was a king. And it could only move one step at a time, and all the enemy pieces would come and kill it. But it had this amazing power to keep coming back to life. It couldn't win by itself, but it accumulated all the blessings by being attacked. And God uses those blessings to claim us from the fallen world and give us life, and to create an army to support True Mother. Now is a different time. Essentially, every one of God's pieces is a queen. All of our members, and increasingly all the leaders of this world, are now directly connected to True Mother. God is unstoppable. Brothers and sisters, the game is over. It will be a checkmate in a few moves. Do you believe it? Last year, prior to her events in Taiwan, True Mother spoke in Yosu? Do you know? Yosu, Korea? Does that sound right? In the south of Korea. Esteemed leaders, all civilizations will come to fruition through the Pacific Rim civilization centered on the Republic of Korea. This is the heavenly order. The Atlantic civilization, though it was rooted in Christianity, was reduced to a self-centered civilization, one that took and conquered. Instead, we must build and settle the Pacific Rim civilization, an altruistic civilization that gives and continues to give, founded on the heart of Heavenly Parent's true love, and rooted in the culture of Hyojin. The Pacific Rim civilization will realize the harmony and unification of all the heritage of history of the continental, coastal, eastern, western, spiritual, and material civilizations. Further, it must become a model of a peaceful, ideal world on the foundation of interdependence, mutual prosperity, and universal values that actualize the ideal of one human family under Heavenly Parent. Dr. Young Ho-Yun, Secretary General of the Chunjang headquarters, said in his letter of November 22nd, 2019, "The settlement of this Pacific Rim civilization is not possible without the support of the 1.7 billion people of the Chinese region. Yet in China, the reality of our movement is very difficult. Therefore, True Mother is working to settle the era of the Pacific Rim civilization by uniting the Chinese region centered on the providence of the Chinese People's Federation for World Peace." On November 22nd, at the World Assembly of Chinese People's Federation for World Peace, True Mother explained that Greater China must first achieve one family if it wants to achieve its goal of bringing about one nation. However, she emphasized that one family is only possible centered on Heavenly Parent and True Parents. Dr. Po-Ya Chang, president of the Control Yuan, one of the 5 branches of the government of Taiwan, introduced True Mother by saying, "This is True Mother's 6th visit to Taiwan, and I was fortunate enough to be able to welcome and attend her on all 6 occasions. True Mother is a great woman and the embodiment of living for the sake of others." So I guess Taiwan is really critical to saving China, or restoring China. In her remarks in Taiwan, Mother said, "We will see a unified world centered on heaven when all 7.7 billion people of the world know Heavenly Parent. I know that you want to make unity centered on the Federation of Chinese people. However, you must know the essence. You must know who is leading this. When that happens, then all nations, large or small, will become child nations before Heavenly Parent and sibling nations to each other. So there will be no more war or discord. Next year, it will have been 60 years since the True Parents emerged. For 60 years, True Parents have guided all humankind so that they could be chosen as children of Heavenly Parent as quickly as possible." That's True Mother on last year, November 22nd. And this is Dr. Yoon's letter of November 23rd. "If we were to give a name tag to the World Rally of the Chinese People's Federation for World Peace held in Taiwan, centering on the Chinese people and the 14,400 person blessing for Chinese people, it would be one world through one family. It is common knowledge that Greater China is aiming for a single nation right now. However, True Mother said that to achieve this unified nation, a country must first build one family that centers around Heavenly Parent and True Parents. If the 1.7 billion Chinese people realize one family, True Mother said that it would not be for a unified nation, but for the sake of a unified world that includes the 7.7 billion people on Earth. The historic 14,400 person blessing for Chinese people that was held today was the amazing launching point for one world through one family." And then at the victory celebration on November 23rd, True Mother proclaimed, "Centered on Taiwan, the day will come when Greater China will attend Heavenly Parent and True Parents." So back to the chess game. The events in Taiwan were the internal foundation. Externally, God has been working Moses-level miracles right in front of our eyes. One important move has been the trade war between US and China. Kim Jong-un has been playing coy with President Trump, signaling an agreement and then pulling back several times. And Kim felt that China had his back. But now, after a lengthy trade war in which China was hit hard, President Xi realized China would be much better off in partnership with the US than as an adversary. The signing of the trade deal, to the surprise of so many experts, represented China proclaiming to the world that the way forward is one of partnership and cooperation. That was an amazing miracle. On December 15th, some 3 weeks after the event in Taiwan, United States Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer said a deal to end the trade war between the US and China was totally done. That deal was signed on January 15th, 2020. Related to the trade war is America's strong and refreshingly united stance against Chinese repressive information technology. Yesterday, this was written 3 or 4 weeks ago. Yesterday at the Munich Security Conference in Germany, U.S. Secretary of Defense Mark Esper made a strong argument to our allies not to integrate Huawei. Is it Huawei? It's a big Chinese company that America has been complaining about. Huawei and other Chinese technologies into their 5G networks. At the same conference, Speaker Nancy Pelosi, in rare accord with the administration, also urged allies to steer clear of Huawei. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo called those technologies Trojan horses. On Thursday, U.S. prosecutors brought racketeering charges against Huawei, accusing them of conspiring to steal trade secrets from 6 U.S. technology companies, on top of the previous charges of bank fraud. I believe that this represents a clear preemptive attack by heaven against China's weapons of information control and repression. Got the wrong slide. Sorry. On December 31st, the 40th day following November 22nd, so November 22nd was the big blessing in Taiwan. So 40 days later, China realized that they were dealing with a new and highly contagious disease, the coronavirus. It was named corona because it looks like a crown, or if you think about it, like a chess piece of the queen. The entire world was on high alert, convinced that we were now encountering the next pandemic that would kill millions around the globe. Amazingly, this virus has been laser focused directly at China. Like I say, this was 3 weeks ago. And not to cause significant death, the number of deaths has been extraordinarily tiny. That may have changed the problem. As of Friday, when I researched this, the total number of confirmed cases was at 67,000, with 66,000 occurring on mainland China. That represents more than 99% in China. And most of the others were people who left China with the disease and were treated elsewhere. At that time, the death rate, mortality rate was around 2%. I think now it's over 3%. Okay, to understand what a miracle this is, let me give you one statistic. According to the Civil Aviation Administration of China, in 2018, Chinese airports handled 1.264 billion passengers. Approximately 10% of Chinese air travel is international. That represents approximately 126 million people per year in and out of China. The US and Australia closed our borders to Chinese arrivals on February 1st. Given the long gestation period of this virus, that represents at least 6 weeks of exposure, during which approximately 14 million people traveled in and out of China. Still, only 3 people have died outside of China as of 3 weeks ago. Similarly, at the time of Moses, only Egyptians died and the Israelites were spared. Every year, nearly 300,000 people die from drowning, 120,000 die in fires. At 1,384, the coronavirus is not even on the charts. So why is it happening? Here are some headlines I captured on Bloomberg's newsfeed. Anger mounts after Wuhan doctor dies. The death of a Chinese doctor who warned about the coronavirus in December has sparked an outpouring of grief and outrage on Chinese social media. Li Wenliang was reportedly reprimanded for spreading rumors. The cost of censorship. On January 3rd, police in Wuhan, China summoned a local physician to deliver an official admonition. Li Wenliang, a 34-year-old ophthalmologist, had alerted his colleagues in a private WeChat group to a SARS-like virus being passed from human to human in the city of 11 million. His posts have leaked to the wider internet, and he stood accused of rumor mongering, potentially career-threatening charge. Coronavirus, could it help the cause of free speech in China? If criticism of the party grows, it could overwhelm the censors. The death of a doctor poses the greatest threat to China's Xi, that's President Xi, yet. Citizens begin to question not just the government response to coronavirus, but the overall competence of the Communist Party. This virus is a laser-guided missile aimed at opening up free speech in China. The Chinese citizens are locked in their homes without any income and are angrier than they were at the time of Tiananmen Square in 1989. They understand that government suppression of information made matters worse. They are exerting huge pressure on the government to open up. In this chess game, China can try to use its economic and military force, but God has extra superpowers, and just like in Egypt, God will keep upping the stakes until China opens up. What else does God have up his sleeve? It's harder to predict what a chess master will do a few moves out. But one development which is interesting is the dramatic change of heart of Mark Zuckerberg, the founder of Facebook. Because of the threat of antitrust actions by the government against Facebook, and because Zuckerberg is interested in receiving approval for his proposal of cryptocurrency, but also in part because of the influence of his wife, Priscilla Chin, whose family is ethnic Chinese and part of the Vietnam boat refugee migration. And she met Zuckerberg when they were in Harvard, and she's now a pediatrician. So recently, Facebook came under fire when Trump posted a Facebook ad accusing Joe Biden of using his position to fire a Ukrainian prosecutor in order to protect his son, Hunter Biden. The Democrats and media exploded and pressured Zuckerberg to take the ad down, claiming it was promoting a false conspiracy theory. Zuckerberg refused, saying, "What I believe is that in a democracy, it's really important that people can see for themselves what politicians are saying so they can make their own judgment." When China does tear down its information wall, perhaps Facebook will play a role in helping the people of China to network. Sorry, I'm going long, guys. And of course, God's endgame is not China, it's Korean reunification. So the conclusion here is that God is working to break down the walls of disinformation and let the light of truth bring the world to a good place. Okay, and I thank Lawrence for creating this sermon. How was it? It's informative, interesting?
Put a lot of effort into it.
Yeah, and I'm sure when he gave it, I'm sure he had, a lot of passion behind it, because he's deeply held beliefs, So I didn't give it as well as he did, I'm sure, but I thought it was very interesting from beginning to end. So let's conclude with a prayer. Dearest Heavenly Parent, today we've been studying about how the changes in our world are not to be feared, but we do believe that we are working to bring your providence to a conclusion. We do believe that we're part of it, and we do believe that living in truth, allowing the truth to be told, working against repression, allowing light to replace darkness, these are the ways in which our world will become the world which you envisioned, and the world which we hope for. Father, we are living with the dream of creating a world where everybody lives together in harmony. And we pray that your will can be done, and that we can make it happen faster through prayer, through love, through working together. We thank you so much for your blessings and your guidance, and we pray this in the name of the blessed Central Families. Thank you very much.